Hello. So it is so good to be back here at FRLA, and I am very excited to be here to introduce our next speaker on the panel, Robert Irvine, and our panel who has a wealth of knowledge and experience and some of the industry's most resilient operators. Before we get there, we have to say thank you to Comcast for sponsoring this keynote. Without them, this keynote would not be possible. Our hotel, restaurant, and supplier panel will ask Robert some very tough questions that the hospitality industry is facing, including supply channel, rising fuel and food costs, technology, food delivery. Mr. Irvine has said no question is out of bounds. So please join me in welcoming our panel, Heiko Dobrikow, our general manager at Riverside Hotel. Danielle Rosse, the owner of Oceans 234. And Carlos Gazitua, the Chief Executive Officer at Sergio's Restaurant. Thank you all. And Mr. Irvine. He is a British Royal Navy veteran and the host of Food Network's hit show Restaurant Impossible, where he has helped struggling restaurateurs turn their businesses around for over 200 episodes and counting. He, okay, ouch.
I told you I was going to burn you, right?
You did.
You can't read correctly.
It says 200. Oh.
You don't need that.
I so do.
You don't need that. Hey, your questions.
Wait, I have
See,
to.
you're all flooded now.
No, I have to finish your.
You're all flustered.
I have to finish it. Look, there's all kinds of good stuff about you right here. He is a successful entrepreneur, owns a family of companies, including Fit Crunch protein bars and snacks, Irvine Spirits, Robert Irvine Foods, as well as restaurants in Las Vegas and within the Pentagon. He's also the chairman of the Robert Irvine Foundation, which gives back to Americans veterans. We saw that video earlier, so wonderful. And he's here with us today.
You want me over there?
I want you to be wherever you want to be.
You're all nervous.
No, so we can all sit down, yes. So that we, but you said you were going to walk and talk, so.
Yes. Through here.
Look at them T-shirts. Team Irvine. Way to go.
Is it okay if we go?
Yeah.
Should we start?
Go for it.
Okay. So our first question is for Carlos about automation and technology.
Well, automation technologies seem to be evolving every day in front of us in the hospitality and restaurant industry. We're seeing robots like food runners, like Bay Robotics, smart bars, floor scrubbers, room service deliveries are being integrated. Do you believe that this is the future of our industry?
Do I believe that? Absolutely. You're the best. You've got a job now. Do I believe it? Yes, a part of industry. I'm involved in robotics. I think the mundane jobs that can be done, the frying in the McDonald's, the Chipotles of the world, the dishwashing they're working on right now. We already have lawn mowers that are controlled from outer space. So yes, I think that's a big part. But what we can't replace are the humanistic pieces that we need the interaction. So yes, to a percentage, but no on the other side. In casual fast dining restaurants, you can have a robot run food up, but somebody still has to take it off, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big lover of robots. As I said, in the mundane dishwashing, yes, but not in the interaction of people. Because we pay our hard-earned money to go to a restaurant to be served. and I don't want to be served by a machine. I want a conversation because that's how we tip, that's how we get our experience.
Danielle, what about kitchen automation? Let's keep going with this concept of automation.
Sure. So yeah, you just talked about a lot of front of the house solutions. What about back of the house solutions? I know there's some restaurants like Robo Eats that have been tried and true. Do you think we're going to start seeing restaurant kitchens become a reality like that, especially in the full service space?
No. I don't. Listen, there's certain things, and you know this as a chef, right? Chefs are creative. Machines can do what we tell them to do, but look at a 500-foot kitchen and try to put a machine in it. It's not possible. We're not that far advanced yet. I think the industry, the produce industry, has took half our work away from us, although it's more expensive, by prepping food, by prepping vegetables, so we don't have to chop, although most of us do. I don't think the kitchens of small mom and pop or even big chain restaurants are big enough to have that. And by that I mean the robotic kind of stuff. We're already using technology in point of sale. We just talked about this before. There's a new product coming out, you'll hear about it very soon, that literally can take 30 days of your business and say, okay, this is how much money you're going to make based on historic data. This is what you're going to buy. This is what you're going to schedule your people, cooks in front of the house. And then you add your new technology onto that. We don't have to think. And Red has been doing it for a long time. We can change hours of operation, and we can change shifts. But this new thing, which you'll hear about really soon, is going to change all that. It literally is within 4 to 6% accurate in every restaurant I've ever done. That's scary, because that's our biggest problem is food cost, labor cost, overheads. Otherwise, we're not in business. So I don't think it's going to, Danielle, in the back, no. Because we need creative, innovative thinkers. Otherwise, what separates the restaurants? That's my opinion.
Thank you. Heiko, let's shift a little bit to workforce housing.
Sure. Robert, first of all, thank you for your service, and then also thank you for really serving the military and helping them out. If you go to robertirvinefoundation.org, I just made a donation, took me about 2 minutes. Pick up your phones, robertirvinefoundation.org, and please make a donation. That would be much appreciated. We talked earlier about common sense, right? And when you take a look at how many people have come into Florida and gobbling up the inventory of our real estate that we have, and when you listen to our workforce that had increases in their rental by 40% in some cases or even more, we have a workforce housing crisis. I wouldn't call it affordable housing, but a workforce housing crisis, right? When you take a look at Miami-Dade and Broward County and Palm Beach, we are in need of about 500,000 units of workforce housing. What do we need to do? You know, we have two choices in life, Robert. We can either sit at the table or be on the menu. Choice is ours, right? I want to sit at the table with the government, and I wish Rubio would be still here and also the lieutenant governor, but at the end of the day, it's the government conversations that we're going to have with our counties and our cities in order to develop those housing. What do we need to do? What would you do? Because you kick ass all the time in the kitchen, and I watch you, and I'm scared, and then I love you because you make everybody fall in love with you, but where are we going to take this crap?
Wow, is that like you're going to marry me or something? You heard that, right? Listen, it's a housing shortage across the country. It's across the globe. I was in Germany last week, in Munich, and they have the same problem we do here. I was feeding the troops, but a little different, but we have the same problem. The hospitality industry, and I mean hotels, motels, restaurants, etc., even the airlines, we can't get folks to work. McDonald's, anybody work for McDonald's? No. It's the greatest training program in the world, believe me, as managers. But they're paying $27 for somebody to go, thank you, sir, out of a window. So when you have that, how can an independent restaurant And by the way, in Vegas, because it's union, I pay $28 for a cook. They can't even cook because it's union, right? So how do you expect us to get people, I'll get to the housing bit in a minute, but how do you get people to come to your restaurant to work unless you're a named person that they want to come, you know, a famous chef, work for a couple of months, and then go off and do their own thing? Because we can't afford to pay them. So what benefits do we give them to entice them? Is it schooling? Is it housing? Is it healthcare? Whatever it is. Housing, good luck trying to find housing unless your company, and I know you have a big company, a company can afford to buy an old hotel, renovate it, and then charge minimum rent for them to come and stay there. It's hard to do that. And I don't know anybody that's doing it, so if you do, we'll jump on a call. I just think the benefits we offer people are what's going to keep them there, not just money. Because Melissa may like money, Robert likes time off, this one likes vacations, and it's really taking an independent person that works for you and knowing what makes them tick to be able to keep them with you. Is it promotion? Is it all those other things we just mentioned? Housing is one of them, and you're right. There is a shortage because look at the inflation. When a case of eggs used to cost $40, it's now $170. Hello, how do we make money? So I think there's a bigger question than just housing. I think it's, you know, how do we, the government, I wish he was still here too, gave so much money away that people don't need to work anymore, or they feel they don't need to work anymore, unless it's this certain level of income that they're happy with. It's only going to go worse, believe me, before it gets better.
But we are very lucky. We have restaurateurs and organizational leaders in this room who have learned how to create the kind of culture that inspires people and it gives them that passion to come to work and be part of that organization in a really meaningful way.
That's great, but what's happening with it? Because we're all having the same problem. So, and there's nothing against you sitting in the room. It's not about the people sitting in the room. It's about people that make decisions that are way above our pay grade. Oh, don't start me on that one. I've just come from DC, don't worry. I'm in fighting mood.
Carlos, let's move to hotel inventory.
Yeah, we're seeing this is a great segue because we're seeing hotels having to shrink some of their rooms 10 to 20% for workforce housing. I talked to a bank yesterday asking about the potential for restaurants to co-op and buy a motel. And the banks love the idea because they're like, oh, this is amazing because we need people to work for us. So if we got restaurateurs, 20 restaurateurs come in, they only get 5 rooms. Those 5 rooms, I'm willing to spend $5K a month just to house people. We have to think creative on this workforce housing. The question is creating kind of policy or kind of incentives. So now the question is, shouldn't we also be incentivized as we take away or have extra costs? If the government can't figure out, businesses like us that are creative will do it, but we also need the government to help us create policies to incentivize, or at least tax incentives, to incorporate workforce housing as an opportunity, because I just don't see it as a one-prong approach. I don't know, wanted to get your thoughts. Is this a one-prong approach? Is this going to be a multifaceted approach on how to address these issues?
I'm going to tell you what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And I said 10 years. So what a lot of you don't know is I do an awful lot with the military. Forget the foundations for a second, but I travel the globe with the military. I'm heavily involved in the new program H2F. It took me 10 years of the senior leadership of our military and senior leadership in government to get a test. And the reason I'm telling you this is because what you've just said. We spend $10.2 billion a year in obesity-driven disease in our active duty men and women, 1.4 million. We have 2.6 active duty reserve and National Guard. If you're a National Guardsman, you have no physical fitness place to go to, but we expect you to be the same as the active duty men and women in your fitness and readiness. Why? Because they're 12-month deployed, literally. Our food sucks. They go off, they eat, they get fat. And I say fat. Because there's not one young kid in the United States of America today, as I stand on this stage, that can join the military because they're already obese by military standards today. So it took me 10 years to get a test from the government. So if you think you're going to get something from the government to help housing, it's going to take you forever and ever. Grants or whatever. It will never, in my opinion, you will never happen another 10, 12, 15 years. By then, it's all over, right? The only way you can do it is by the people here. And you said banks and restaurants. And there are problems there, because what happens the minute one of your restaurant staff trashes that room? Then what? And listen, I'm the prophet of doom until you come up with something that is perfect, or as close to perfect as possible. And housing, I don't think, is one of them. I really don't. I think the incentives to keep people there, that help them, that you teach them, that you give them something, and again, understanding the employees you have, what makes them tick, why do they keep coming back? Because they can leave your restaurant, your restaurant, your restaurant, my restaurant, and 3 minutes down the road there's another one, and they don't care what we think. They've hired them because they need the staff. So I think it's a bigger picture, and it's to do with the inflation. How many people can eat out now? Our restaurants in Vegas are doing really well, but not necessarily in DC, New York, and Chicago, believe it or not. We've not gone back to COVID levels yet, pre-COVID levels yet, because now we have inflation and people don't go out as much. We used to go out 5 times, between 4 and 5 times a week with excess income. Now we don't have excess income because milk's $8 a bottle or a gallon. So I think that's got to change before we start to see a change in our staffing levels, our cost of ingredients, our shipping, our cardboard. I'm in the food business. I have a food company, a nutrition company, a clothing company. My Fit Crunch, which you mentioned, my biggest company, cardboard went up 108%. Whey protein went up 78%. So then how do I pass it on to you that's not got any money? I can't. So I eat that cost for a certain part, and then you'll see, obviously, then we have to put prices up or shrink something. So I think that's a big part of our business is economics of the country affect our business. We've seen that not only through COVID, outside of COVID. So I think that's a big thing that I would love to talk to Rubio about. And a few others.
So let's shift away from the workforce housing a bit and move to foreign labor. So Carlos, let's dig into that.
By the way, I tried your peanut butter and jelly, like the crunch is delicious. I'm like, how is this healthy? This is amazing. I just keep popping them in all the time. They're amazing.
Keep eating them, you're going to wear a t-shirt that looks like me.
I worked out for like 4 weeks at 5 a.m. just to wear this t-shirt here today, so.
But you do what I mean. You got the Baby Gap t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it slim.
I got the same one.
I guess the other thing is, like, for a lot of hotels, it's obviously utilizing international visa laborers to supplement labor force. Again, I don't want to go to the government, but have you seen that as opportunities also, and using your restaurants and how we can use international labor visas for that?
So my restaurants unfortunately can't do that because one is actually inside the Pentagon. I'm the only sit-down restaurant in the Pentagon, and you have to have a very specific ID to get in. So vetting for me, for my staff, takes 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So no, I can't do that. In Vegas, very much we could, but I've had the same staffing for 5 years since we opened, which we're very lucky. I've not lost people. But we can't use, it's like when I sell anything to the military, it has to be made in the US. Right? So clothing has to be made in the US, food has to be made in the US, bars. So our bars are made in Pittsburgh, our distillery is in Pennsylvania, so I can't have that, unfortunately, but I would.
So Danielle, expand on that a little bit about rebuilding the local workforce then, especially now after COVID.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, here in South Florida, obviously, we have a labor shortage. I think right now, especially in our hospitality, we have something like 30,000 job openings in the hospitality space. And we have something like 20,000 keys coming online for hotels in the next 3 years. And when we look at that pipeline, you know, to me, I think of our high school and college students. You know, how do we get these kids excited about getting back into hospitality, especially after the pandemic? It's, you know, wasn't really exciting getting into, you know, our industry. So how do we really get them excited and show them that there is great opportunity within the hospitality space?
I'll tell you what I tell everybody else. I think it starts at school. You know, home economics classes, colleges that teach. So when I grew up, I'm not growing up yet, but when I was in the military and went to school, I learned how to, you know, dissect a cow, a pig. We don't do that now. We buy cuts of meat. There's no excitement in cooking if you're not taught. And I think that's the biggest thing. When I go to a military base and I see a Golf or 92 Golfs, that are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old that got in the military because that's all they could do is cook. And yet they have a 6x5 recipe card. How excited do you think they are when they can't be creative with a 21-day menu? And I think that's the biggest thing. When I go in there and we teach and we train, they get all excited, get reinvigorated. And I think that comes from schooling, the restaurants, the parents. I've got kids at 11 years old in cooking classes right now that are going to be amazing chefs when they get older because they're excited, because they want to know about food. And I think this generation, here comes the rub, this generation just wants everything given to them instead of working for it. Sorry, they don't want to work. And it's hard to get somebody to come in at 6 in the morning and work till 9 at night now. When we started, you do it, and you do it for free. Right? Because you want to learn. And now, well, I'm not doing that. Why should I do that when I can go over there or work from home? So I think, and we're having the same issue in the military too, because at some point, those 92 Golfs, the cooks, won't exist, and the dining facilities will be outsourced to a Sodexo or an Aramark or somebody bigger. That's the way I see it going right now, because I don't see enough influx of kids wanting to be cooks. If you go up to Columbia University, anybody live up that way? You should go and see their food program. I put it in there. It's unbelievable. 95% success rate over 5 years. So in year 1, you have to join the food program. Year 2, 3, through 5, you don't have to. Then 93% retention in year 5 because it's fresh food, it's done by people that care. It's unbelievable. And I think it's not only the customer that we have to educate about what you do that's so different to somebody else, but it's also the people that come to work for you. And you talk about technology. During COVID, we had cameras in restaurants and an app on the phone so that the customer could see exactly what they're doing. And we could track the cook that went for a smoke that said he was cleaning out the refrigerator. So when the customer went to the door and you take your phone and you could press on the check mark, you could see exactly what was happening in that restaurant in the last 24 hours. Technology is already in there, just slightly different. You want to know what your food's doing, whether it's been dropped on the floor. Sorry, it's dropped on the floor, wiped and whatever. And it happens, believe me. I've been in a few restaurants in the last couple of months like that. But technology is changing that now because we can see what you're doing. We can see how clean you are, the way you handle the food, the way you wash your dishes.
So with that current reality, Heiko, let's go to minimum wage. Shift the conversation there.
Sure. Actually, what's going on with the ice cream at McDonald's? Can you fix it for us, please? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just sidetracked. That's how my mind works.
Yes.
Just by show of hand, who is here actively involved in the high schools? Raise your hand. Actively. Who is? You see, everybody's hand should go up, guys. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's talking about that we are actively involved in rebuilding the pipeline in our high schools and get them excited about this amazing industry that we actually have. That's what he's talking about, you know? You guys, you have to get your butt off your chair and just get into the schools and make it happen. Got to talk to them, right? Because at the end of the day, the hospitality industry is a springboard to every industry. That's how you have to sell it. And that's how you sell the American dream. But speaking about the American dream, it's really this craziness about the minimum wage. As we are going now from $11, by 2026 we're going to be at $15. And then, you know, we heard already what you are paying, and then with your union properties, where you're paying, right? But my question to you is, if you look at the lifestyle of South Florida, and you know how expensive it is here in South Florida, right? What is the right minimum wage per se to have a quality of life? To really say that you have a quality of life, right? Is it the $11 today? Is that a quality of life you're going to have with where you're looking, where your rent money is, which is about 60% of your salary is going towards rent? Where is it, Robert?
I think the minimum wage has to go up to, you know, I look at things a little differently than the minimum wage. I look at individually. I will say to you, Melissa, what do you think you're worth a day? Regardless of what you paid, what are you worth a day? In your own mind.
$500.
$500. I'm worth $100,000 in my mind. Am I going to get it? No. The reality is between 500 and 100,000, we have to come up with a number for each person that does a job specifically. Because I can't turn around and say, oh, Melissa, you're getting 500, you're getting 2, you're getting 1, you're getting, you know, when I first came to this country, I was making $32,000 as a sous chef in Trump Taj Mahal. True story. And I thought it was rich. I wasn't, by the way. But so I think it's the individual person and the job description. I can see it right now, next year being $35, which is scary, because how do you make money on that as an independent? Good luck. But if you want the quality of person, you're going to pay that. It's no, you're all too young, but after the Second World War, America had something called the brain drain. Anybody remember that? That means you're really old if you remember that. But basically, they offered visas and work to people to come here that were rocket scientists, you know, and they paid them a fortune. And I think that's what you're going to see beginning of next year. From all over Europe, we will open the borders, in my opinion, and we'll let people in for hospitality. I do. But I can see you know what, I just told you, $27 an hour we're paying now in the union. It's only going to go up next year. And the good thing with the government is, in the Pentagon, we're grandfathered in. So whatever we pay them, that went up minimum to $15. But because we had the restaurant in there, we didn't have to comply with that. But we have to comply with health care, child care, and all the other federal government pieces. So in the long run, it costs me more money. I'd rather pay you $17 and you take care of everything else. Or $20, whatever.
You know, as a follow-up on this one, you know, we just came out of a session which was the commission-based structure, the commission-based model, right, which was very insightful, was first introduced to us last year at FRLA, and this year we have seen so many more restaurateurs taking it, right? And it's really igniting the spirit that Robert is really talking about, right? What are you worth, right? Are we creating better salespeople? If they're selling better, they should make more money, right? If they're producing more, they're making more money. So I encourage you, you know, look out for some of those names that were in this particular session. They are really on the frontier of creating change for our industry, because the good old tip structure might not be working for the long run, as the minimum wage is going up, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to balance now the labor costs that we're going to be having at our ankles versus getting the right profitability. And I think that's maybe
But I also think the government has to change that taxation piece too, right? Because if we're going to increase the salaries and by the way, that's the right thing to do, if you've got good people, absolutely. But then the taxation has to be different of the businesses that are hiring people. We can't say, oh, we're going to hire all these people. I just hired 400 people last week for a new plant I built in Pittsburgh. Right? We're a big business, really big business. And I don't mind paying taxes, but if I'm now I have 4,600 employees. So that you can tax me, but I'm now giving you more employees and more tax from employees in that workforce. So there has to be a look at across the board. I'm not talking about Amazons and all these people who don't pay any taxes, because they should pay the equal tax. But the smaller, mid-sized businesses, if we're hiring people and we're giving good wages, then they have to look at that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's done fairly at the moment.
Yeah, it's a paradigm switch, right? Between owning real estate, I make, $50 million, but I only have 5 people working, compared to being restaurateurs or hotels and making $50 million, but I hire, 10,000 people. Why should I be taxed the same if I'm helping the economy and I'm helping the government raise money, this is a conversation obviously for the senators, but if you think about it, the hospitality industry hires more people per square foot. Why are we being taxed the same on the same value to a hedge fund manager who has 5 people and have the option?
I knew I liked you.
So there you go. The perfect answer.
You can run for senator. I'll vote for you.
Thank you.
I attended that session as well, and I was actually going to comment on that. And one of my takeaways was it wasn't just a different payment structure, but it was also elevating the profession, elevating these folks as professionals embarking on a career rather than employees who are just filling a job. And one of the things that I found really interesting was it was a reallocation of the way they put the employees on the floor, and it built just a different culture in the organization. How about potential new revenue streams, Carlos? Go with that.
All right, so we talked about different ways of thinking. We all try to figure out how to make more money. So we're seeing technology is going to help us, right, in so many ways. We're seeing, obviously, looking at people putting cash prices on menus in order to try to take away that credit card fees. I don't know if you know, Visa and MasterCard, just for you to know, increased your fees double in the last 10 years for all of us, just for you guys to know that. Legislation's coming out by a Republican and Democrat to try to give us more options. But we're looking at opportunities to make more money. Obviously, we're also seeing the future FYS coming out that you're going to be able to charge seats. Think about for us, Saturday and Fridays, just like an airline industry, you're going to be able to charge more in your best seating in your restaurant, almost like an airline, where you can just pay higher price on a Saturday night, 7, for you to pay extra fee like an airline for your restaurants and hotels for that. These are all things that are happening. But I want to talk about the blockchain, because all this can be done or be used in the future to transform the way we do business. I wanted to get your thoughts on the new pipeline of revenues using blockchain technology for restaurants and hotels.
See, I think that sucks. I think if you charge me an extra $1 or $2, $5, $10, whatever, on a Saturday night to sit in that seat, I'm never coming back to your restaurant. I'm never coming back to your restaurant, because that to me is just greedy. We go to restaurant, and tell me if I'm wrong, but we
You're
take
wrong.
I love you. We take our hard-earned money to go to a place that we want to go to because the food's good, the service is good, the drinks are great, and they know us. We all like to be known, right? And and in New York, they've been doing that for years. And you go up and you tip the maitre d' like, right? And I'm going to get in no matter what. We've been doing it for years. I just think the more you put it in somebody's face, it's going to hurt the individual restaurants. The only way you make more money is by doing a better job. Upsell the product. Extensions of your brand, food trucks, ice cream parlors, whatever. That's the only way you make more money. You know, if in my Fit Crunch world, the bar world, if I want to make more money, I put an extra SKU in 4600 Walmart, right? I put a bar. That's how I make more money. Otherwise, I can't make more money. The restaurant, I can only sell you an appetizer, main course, a drink, and a dessert. Then you're done. It's very hard for me, and you guys probably know better than I do, but I've not been able to break that code. I'm only as good as a server, that can sell that bottle of wine. And I'm a big believer, just so you know, I had a restaurant in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and on a Tuesday night, I had Chihuly glass, Italian slate. I didn't put it in, I bought the restaurant. Tuesday night was dead for me. I said, okay, what do I do here? I started a tapas night. 6 tapas, you get a bottle of wine free. I went to the closeout sales. I bought pallets of red wine and white, regardless of the name, regardless how good it was. You get 6 tapas, you get a bottle of wine for free. I did 1,200 covers every Tuesday night. One night, pay for everything. That was my saving grace. And every restaurant I go to, I do the same thing, because it works. And it costs me nothing to put tapas on a plate, as opposed to, 4 different types of meal for 4 different people. And I think it's that out-the-box thinking that you've got to do to expand revenue. What do you do?
Me?
Yeah.
About what?
Expanding revenue. You're a chef, hotelier, restaurateur,
Restaurateur, not a
all
chef.
of the best. We're going to camp out at your place next week, so it's a restaurant.
Increase my volume, increase the number of people that walk through my doors and my offerings. What can I give them that's new and exciting and, something new that they want to come out to me for and remember us by, and a lot of that's through community work and giving back to our community because then they come and support us.
Cause marketing.
Yeah. What about supply chain issues, Danielle?
Yeah, supply chain. So that's now no longer a hot topic and really just a day-to-day reality. It's a problem, and it's showing itself in so many different ways, right? So, the golden standard for a restaurant is, are you putting out a consistent product? Are you giving it a quality product, right? And to make that customer experience amazing. But yet, we're dealing with completely inconsistent product coming in our doors and inconsistent quality, and just navigating getting those things every single day. So how are you navigating that in your restaurants, and what are ways that you're kind of telling your team to overcome it? Because it is really a challenge. Something that we were so used to being able to get consistently time after time is now, on any given day we cannot get, and it could be something that our guests are really conditioned to loving and coming to us for.
I think the adaptability of your menu, number one, because you're not getting the stuff you say. And you think about how many seats you have in your restaurant?
200.
Okay. I have 20 million, right, across the board in the military. So when I can't get something, I have to substitute it with something else and make it better than what it was, right? Which is really hard because you classify or you specify A5 meat, which I know you don't, but right, you specify something, they can't get it, but they say, oh, we're going to send you this instead, which is really, and now you have to then be the creative chef or have a creative chef to say, well, instead of getting A5, and I'm using that because there's a restaurant here that uses it, I know, and I've got flank steak. How do I make flank steak taste or look like A5? You're going to be a magician. And that's the only way you can do that. No matter what it is, you have to adapt and make it better by being creative and sauces and things that change that, right? And you talk about spices and everything else. But the supply chain in the next, I would say by this November, it will change. It will start to get easier. Inflation won't yet, but I think the supply chain will. The biggest problem we face is not even the food, is now passing on the price of the product that comes in onto the customer. So you'll notice Snickers bars, Mars bars, they've gone from this to this. Still the same price, but they become smaller. So the portions, and I say this on the show all the time, look at the portion size. What does it cost you? Not just what does it cost you to put the food on the plate, but what is it costing you to make that as the human being? But then the overheads, so we put everything in that plate. And if you could to put everything now, I wouldn't come to your restaurant because I couldn't afford to come to your restaurant. So the restaurateurs are eating the costs, which hurts the bottom line, the net profit, and then half the companies go out of business because people can't afford to go to them. So it's a double whammy with product, personnel, and how much you're going to charge for it. Because you can't say, 3 times plus, because it doesn't work anymore. Try getting a piece of beef and 3 times it. Good luck.
So we may actually have a few minutes to open it up to the audience for a few questions, but before we do that, Heiko, let's talk a little bit about food distributors.
Sure. So, Robert, I watched you. You gave a good bribe to Melissa. And you would be a great politician. You would be great in public office. But anyways, that's a whole other story. If you take a look at our allied members, we have a tremendous amount of support by our allied members. And many of them are food production companies and food servicing companies and food purveyors. Do you think there's an opportunity to work with them in order to reduce their cost for us as well, for them to even implement automation? Let's use, for example, just the difficulty to find prep cooks today, right? Very hard to find, right? And a lot of times your cook threes are doing all the hard work, so you're not going to have your cook ones any longer in order to do that, because you just can't find them. They're coming to the door. But if we go back to the quote-unquote manufacturing ideology that Senator Rubio was talking about, right? And we going to the big purveyors and say, hey, listen, why don't you open up some plants in order to get us the onions already chopped or diced, get us the carrots already rightly julienned, whatever it may be, but give us a fair price, right? Don't mark us up that it doesn't make financial sense. Do you think that is a conversation that we should have with some of our allied members?
Listen, I told you I was in a small group, but last week I was at the International Fresh Produce Association in Monterey, right? Farmers. And I had the same conversation with them. The cost to produce lettuce, tomatoes, avocados, right, has gone through the roof, right? It has, just like everything else. So they're not going to make a deal with you, or us, I should say, not you, that's going to put them in the hole, and nor should they, right? Nor would we do that with a plate of food to a customer. We can't do that, although we're doing it a little bit. I do think it's a conversation of cost plus, right? It cost me this, and I'm going to put this much on. I do that with wine in the restaurant. I don't charge $60 for a bottle of wine that costs me $12 because I want to sell wine. I'm not stupid. But there is a conversation that says, hey, listen, we're in this together, and if you're going to buy all your stuff from me, and you're going to commit to me like produce or whatever it is, then there's a deal to be had for sure, because they want to sell product too. But I'll go one step further. It's going to cost them just like it costs me to put in an automation system to be able to peel that onion, to chop that watermelon, to do, right? Because it's saving you an FTE. Yeah. But on the other flip side, it's costing them. And it just cost me $10.5 million for a 400-foot line to make a protein bar. Yeah, it spits out 300,000 bars an hour. Great. But there's a cost associated with that up front. And I think if the producer is willing, instead of people peeling and chopping, because that doesn't solve anything, it really doesn't, then there is a conversation there for sure. I mean, I know people that do that across the country, across the world. But it's a two-way street. You've got to commit to X thousands of pounds so they know that they're making their money. It all looks like quiet in here. All right, open up some questions.
How about out there? Does anyone out there have a burning question for Mr. Irvine? Go. I think we're going to, okay. The Ashleys get to pick.
Thank you. It's really a question to everyone, yourself, Robert, and everyone there. I know you're in the food industry. My company does guest experiences, mainly with hotels, but also restaurants. And I hear you all speak about the cost of food, the cost of staffing, etc. But personally, I'm an experiences person. I spend my money on experiences, not things. I think many of the world today are doing this. What do you think is the importance of coming up with creative, things within your restaurants that draw and attract, and how much is the dollar value that you consider putting towards that, not just the quality of the food, which is of course important, but to coming up with something unique that makes your visitor go, that's the restaurant I'm going to.
Oh, I could go on that one. I created a protein bar, and I'm going to go there first before the restaurant. 231 protein bars 8 years ago in this country. I make the baked bar. It's the only baked bar in the world it is today. It does about 150 million a year in 8 years. It's worth $500 million right now. Why do people buy Fit Crunch? Not only because it does good, because we give money away to our, but it's also a great tasting bar. I can see 3 people there. You make 500 today. You make $500 a day. You want to know where to go spend your hard-earned money with an experience. They've got the same restaurant. And I said this morning, what makes your restaurants different? Why would I come to your restaurant as opposed to American, Chinese, Vietnamese? Well, we'll call you German, right? Call you German for today. Why would you go to that? Why? Because your mood changes. By the way, we're creatures of habit. Everyone in this room is a creature of habit. When I was in Afghanistan, we had 120,000 troops. But in dining facilities, we would give 20 different food items. And then we would give Snickers bar, Twix bars, all the candy you could eat. You would come in from Alabama, you would come in from Kentucky, you would come in from England, Germany. You would eat the same things every day because we're creatures of habit. And when you ate it after the 6th day, you would go up to the counter and you say to the chef, what's this shit again? You laugh. But that's how we grow up. That's how we grow up. So when you're in the mood for food, what is your first go-to food? Yeah. So you're out, I'm out. Right? So then you go for sushi. Where do you normally go for sushi in a restaurant? Somebody close to your house, right? Right? And you get ringworm. Right? Or tapeworm. Do you go back to that restaurant? No. So what's saying that the quality of food that you're getting at that restaurant is what you expect? Because you don't know eating sushi. I won't eat sushi unless it's made by Morimoto. I'm a snob. Because I know where he gets his fish. But you would eat that same place. Okay. I just think when you have an expectation. So as a restaurateurs, we set expectations for our staff, our food, our drinks, and your experience. And then when you come in, you have an expectation. Our job is to meet your expectation. Now, a prime example of that is if a menu is written and it says filet mignon with green beans, haricot vert, whatever green beans, haricot vert, and a demi-glace, right? So when you read that menu, or you read your sushi menu, you automatically create a picture in your mind of that dish, right? And when it comes and it doesn't come the way your mind thinks, it's already not good, regardless of what it tastes like, just the way it looks. And we do that, all of us. And we say, oh. So a way to avoid that expectation that you have is to be very blunt and very, it's a piece of beef, it's green beans, and not be foo-foo about it, just list the ingredients, so that you know that you've got green beans, beef, and something. Then when it comes, and they've been creative, oh wow. Now it's exceeded your expectations. And I think the minute you walk into a restaurant or a hotel, and one thing that really pisses me off is when people are doing this. They're chewing gum, and they're on the phone. And you wait there for 3 minutes, and they're still on the phone. You don't exist. And that's a big problem we have when you go into a restaurant or a hotel. I did it, I checked in here, same thing. There was a woman on the phone. I stood there for 5 minutes, so I'm like, hey, get off your phone. I'm here, I need to be checked in. That's not part of your expectation, right? So I think creating unique foods, because I can get a hamburger anywhere. I can get a piece of chicken anywhere. So what makes it different? The proteins haven't changed in, 250 years. They're still the same, and how do we make it different? Unless you have any ideas.
No, I think in terms of experiences, I think in the future, my opinion is that restaurateurs, we can have no restaurateur right now, very few, have a fixed sales model. Every one of us, we're in a variable sales model, meaning that we don't know who's coming in today, right, based on our past experiences. I think the future opportunity for experiences, maybe like wine tasting events and things like that, like maybe you want to go to a restaurant, you're going to have to be part of the SaaS model of that restaurateur's brand. And I think that creates money up front for them to create these crazy out-of-door experiences, opportunities, because people are going to look for food, I agree, uniqueness, but I think they're also going to look for these experiences. But restaurateurs' margins are not that big. So we're going to need, for us to market a different way in the future, to have both revenue sources so we can blow your mind outside. But it's going to take uniqueness, like Chef Irvine is saying.
But again, if you come home from work and you're tired and fed up, and you're going with your husband, I know you're not, right? But you're going with your husband and you're fighting, what experience are you going to have? Because it depends on you and that piece. Because yeah. And that's creativity, right? From a chef, if you're talking food-wise, for sure. But chicken, I say this all the time. Chicken's going to be chicken, chicken's going to be chicken, chicken's going to be chicken. It's what we do with that chicken to make it great. And it can be as simple as mashed potato and chicken. But it better be the creamiest, better be the moist, you say moist now? Moistest piece of chicken, or the juiciest piece of chicken, or whatever. I don't know even what you can say anymore, but that makes you want to go back for that. That's how I see it.
Robert, I think the other thing that you pointed out several times here on the panel as well, and to answer your question, you better know your customers. Get to know them. And ask them the question, hey, is there something special that you would do, and would you bring your 30 best friends to it and create that unique, specialized experience for them? Get to know your customers, We live off the locals. The visitors are extra credit. That's great when they come. But year-round, we better love our locals. That's what I would tell you. Speak up, go to your favorite restaurant and say, listen, it's getting a little stale. How about this? Let the professionals get creative, and you'll be blown away what they're going to do.
And the funniest part, women drive household. What we wear, what we buy, proven.
What we can say.
My wife told me to say that. No, it's true. It's true. Very true. Women rule the roost.
Thank you so much. So my two main jobs were to do the introductions, which we all
Which you
saw how
messed
that
up.
went.
Which you messed up.
And keep us on time.
Which you messed up, right.
So I'm going to wrap this up. But speaking of exceeding expectations, Carlos and Heiko and Danielle, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And Robert, after 320 episodes, thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
How many days do I travel here?
Pardon me?
How many days do I travel here?
344.
45.
Thank you so much.
Well,
I'm
you have
going to
one more
turn it
day.
over now back over to Fred LeFranc to wrap us up for the afternoon.
That was a great session. Give another round of applause, all right? And Melissa for being such a good sport. So we have breakout sessions promptly at 2 o'clock. You have a bit of a coffee break, so visit our booths out there. And again, after the breakout sessions, there'll be some cocktails and libations later on tonight. But don't forget, tomorrow we start bright and early with breakfast. We have half a day tomorrow, so be here. We have some great keynote speakers, Gabriel Brosh with the Millennial Solution, and John DeJulius, the Chief Revolution Officer and President, creating a customer service revolution. So thank you all very much. We'll see you out in the hall, and have a great afternoon.